Hello, thanks for coming to walk with me today. I'm walking at 1.8 miles per hour, and you guys, we've made it to November. And actually, as I record this video, we are about a week into November at this point. And so that means my step goal is up. And if you remember from a different video, if you saw it, I increase my step goals every month, and sometimes I do an increase of 250 steps, and sometimes I do an increase of 500 steps. I will say I went from 7,500 straight to 8,000 for the month of October, because in September I was getting those 7,500 steps like pretty easily. I was walking a little more during my work day, so I think that's part of it, and maybe we just happened to be out and about shopping, or I was out with friends, or I don't know, but it was coming to me so easily, which I was grateful for, since in the past it was a little bit hard to get 5,000 steps when it was something I wasn't used to. So I was like, oh, we'll go straight from 7,500 right up to 8,000. We'll have no problems. And when I tell you, it was so challenging for me in the month of October. Like, I think it was just me. I just wasn't on my game as I had been in the other months, and I got a little comfortable, I guess we'll say. So I would find that by the end of my work day, I would only have around half the steps I needed for the day, which isn't too bad, because there's still like several hours before I go to bed, probably like 5 or 6 hours before I go to bed. But obviously the last few hours of my day, I want to like be chill and not be moving around. So I found that I would have to kind of march around my living room as I was like watching a show after dinner. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I want to be like settling down more at that time of day. So I think now that I'm in November, and now that I have to get even more steps, but I decided to go to 8,250, and that's been going pretty well. I think mostly because I've been more like conscious of walking throughout my day and putting in some extra steps here and there that maybe I wasn't doing in October. But I think it's going to be wise for me to start trying to get up a little bit earlier, just to even knock out like a 10 or 15 minute walk before my workday starts. Like currently, I get up in the mornings, and the first thing I do is my morning yoga, and it's never more than 20 minutes. And I would say often it's more around the 10 to 15 minute mark for how long I spend doing morning yoga, which is just about right for me. It's just like a nice, gentle way to wake up. And I am not a morning person. I don't hate mornings as much as I used to, but I still don't love them, and I still don't want to get up a lot earlier. But I was actually afraid when I started yoga that I was gonna have like a struggle, but I'm doing like some super gentle yoga. I've mentioned it before, but I mostly do the videos on the channel Yoga with Bird, if you want to check those out. I've also done yoga with Adriene, and there's a few more yogas I've tried. Like, I can't remember the names of them right now though. So like they've only been like a once or twice. Not that anything was wrong with them. I just always tend to make it back to Yoga with Bird. So she's my go-to. But it's been really great. It's like a nice, gentle way to wake up. I don't feel as stiff throughout the day. I have less like pain in my neck or shoulders or back than I used to, because I'm sitting for a decent amount of my day. And it's, you wake up out of bed, and as you get older, you're just a little stiffer. So it's really been helpful and really made me feel so much better. So I'm happy that I do my yoga, but what I really want to do is just push my wake up time back 10-15 minutes. I may even start just with 5 minutes, just something so that I can do my yoga and wake up, and then just get in a quick walk to get a head start on my steps, because that'd be better than having to quickly show them in at the end of the day, or where sometimes I even wear my watch because it's waterproof in the shower, and I'll like march around. I'm lucky my shower's kind of big enough I can march around a little bit. Obviously you don't have to wear a watch. You can get your steps whether the watch is on or not, but it's just a nice way to keep track. But anyway, that's my plan for November, and trying to get these steps in, because once December shows up and we know it's going to be here before we know it, I'm going to need to up that to 8,500. And then a few months into 2025, I should be at the 10,000 step mark, which is my goal. And at that point, I think I'll probably just try to maintain that. And if I get more, that's awesome. You may have also recalled, if you watched another video, that I said the weather was getting cooler here and maybe I'll go outside for a walk and get some steps. That has not really happened. Like right after I said that, the weather kind of got warm again. And that's not uncommon for where I live. It takes a long time to really cool down here in the South. It's not a big deal. Could I go out and walk? Yes. Do I? No. And especially now that the time just recently changed, I don't really want to go out walking at night. Our neighborhood does have some street lights, but not a lot. And it's pretty dark here at night. They're kind of spaced out, and it seems like they're out a lot. But our neighborhood has like a lot of hills and twists and turns, and it's like I don't want to be out there possibly getting ran over because someone's not paying attention. So I could always go walk in my driveway. It's not super long, but it's long enough to go out and do some walking in. So we'll see. But otherwise, I've just been getting more steps inside, or if I go, out and about. But anyway, enough about steps. I want to talk to you about a few other things. And the first thing is, who knew how hard it was to find a therapist? And maybe you or someone you know has had that same experience, or maybe you had an easy experience finding a therapist. I would love to know. Drop in the comments and let me know if you have in the past or now are seeing a therapist. Like, how easy or challenging was it for you to find one? And not only to find one, but to find the right one, right? So I mentioned a few episodes ago that I was going to start therapy, and that I thought by the time you saw this video, I might have started already. Well, no, I haven't. Actually, I will be starting on Monday. Today is actually Saturday, and I'll be starting on Monday. So I'm like excited. I'm also nervous. I have had a little bit of experience with a therapist, but not much. And I don't even recall if I shared that experience here. I know I mentioned it probably on my podcast, Bitches Be Cray. If you haven't given that a listen, head on over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon. You can find it there. Oh, and YouTube, of course. So if you want to check that out, you can just Bitches Be Cray. That's where you'll find us. But when I was in college, like the last 2 years, and at this point I was probably around 22 years old, and I had just gotten out of a long distance relationship from 4 years, but I moved to college to transfer my last 2 years, and the move I made put me like an hour closer to my previous long distance relationship. And so in my mind, I was thinking like, maybe we will start dating again, because I think at that point we had been only broken up for like 3 months or so. So in my mind, I'm like, you know what? We will be much closer. Maybe we'll actually start going on some dates and trying to date. And that did not happen. And as a matter of fact, he started dating someone else, and we have mutual friends. So I saw/heard some about it, and it broke my heart. And so yeah, I found that I was having a hard time really connecting with people at college. I was a little bit older than I was living in the dorms. So I was like 22, and most of my roommates, I mean, they were probably like 20, not like a lot different, but they could have been 19, they might have even been younger. They were younger. They were just a few years in, but they were super nice and we all got along, and so I'm grateful for that. But like those first few months, just trying to get used to like living like an hour away from my family and my friends that I'd had my whole life, also trying to deal with my feelings about a relationship that I thought would be rekindled. And so I had decided, like, I'm tired of crying in my room every day. Maybe I need help. And so I went to the on-campus counselors. There were several, but whoever was available to see me that day was an older gentleman, and he made me feel like he was a little dismissive. And maybe, I don't know like the process or what all someone as a college counselor can really do to help you, but he had suggested that I try like group therapy. And just, I remember thinking in that time, like, I don't know anybody here. I don't really want to do that. I just wanted like a few sessions one-on-one with someone who could give me some like tips, tricks, strategies to feel better about everything I was going through. But I kind of felt like he just like dismissed me and wanted to pawn me off on group therapy. And so I was like, okay. So that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for therapy. And then a few years ago, I'm thinking it was probably, it could have been late 2018. No, it would have been 2019. In 2019, I was having a really challenging time teaching. I had a lot of student behaviors going on. My stepchild who lived with us had only lived with us for a few years, and he also had some behavior challenges, and he was going through some stuff. So it was like a really rough time in my life, and my school offered an EIP or EAP, an employee assistance program, where you could basically see a therapist for the same issue a few times, and but it had to be specific ones who were like part of that network. So I found one close to me, and I went, and I don't remember it being like a terrible experience, but I also remember leaving feeling like, no, this isn't gonna work for me. Like, the therapist and we weren't connecting. I didn't feel comfortable talking to them. I felt like I was trying to explain what was going on in my life and why I was there, and I felt like we kept getting off topic, which I realized therapists will dig into other parts of your life to try to find like a root issue. But I don't know, it was just not it for me, and I could feel it. And so I did not go back. Not to mention, I knew it wasn't going to be like a long-term thing. You could only get, I think it was like 6 sessions per issue or something like that. But I figured it out on my own and moved on. Hadn't really thought about therapy again for a while. And then I've been working on just like some self-growth and starting to realize and be really self-aware of like some challenges that I have. One of them being anxiety, where I will like overthink things before they happen, and then once something does happen, I will overanalyze it. I have some FOMO, like I have a fear of missing out on certain foods or drinks, fear of missing out, like even something like, if I was at like a little gathering and we had pens to write with, right? Let's say there's a blue pen, a red pen, a black pen, an orange pen, a green pen, a purple pen, whatever. Like, I love the color blue, and I'd be okay with like pink or purple, but if I ended up with an orange pen, I feel like that would send me, I wouldn't have like a tantrum outwardly, but like on the inside, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I really just, like, I would obsess over wanting the blue pen. So that type of thing, I could use a little guidance on and use some strategies to help. So I also have anxiety around traveling, specifically with flying. I have flown about, I don't know, maybe 6 times, and the longest trip I took was when I student taught in Costa Rica, and so that was like a 3.5-hour flight, and it was actually a good flight. Like, honestly, I've never had a bad experience on an airplane, but I think a lot of it stems from just being worried that I have zero control, like I'm not flying the plane, I'm not part of the crew, I don't really know what's going on, and if something happens, like there's no escape. You know what I mean? Because I know a lot of people will tell you about the stats of how flying is statistically safer than being in a car. And I also have anxiety around cars, especially on the interstate from being in an accident. Luckily, thank God, no one was hurt, but a few years ago. So I do have anxiety around like traveling, and also about just the part of being away from home and being out of my routine and not having my stuff, not having my bed, not having my bathroom with my shower and my sink, and like that kind of thing also can give me some anxiety. So travel anxiety, and I'm sure the list goes on and on. But so I decided, as I'm becoming more self-aware, like, hey, let's go to therapy. Let's see what healing we can get into, right? And my best friend Nancy, who I do the Bitches Be Great podcast with, suggested that I reach out to her therapist because she has had a really good experience, and the type of like therapy she provides, she goes into like stuff with your inner child or your adolescence, like things that I've been working on personally. So I was like, she sounds like she would be a good fit. So I did decide to reach out, and it just so happened when I did was probably when in the video I said, hey, I'm going to start therapy. It just so happened at that time she was going on vacation and was going to be gone for like 2 weeks. I think she was gone. So she wasn't going to be able to set something up with me until she came back, which that was fine. I understood that. So once she got back from her vacation, she did reach out to me. So when she did respond to me before she went on vacation, though, saying that, hey, I'll be back on this date and we can set up a time then. Like, does this time work? And I was like, yeah, sounds good. And in the moment, and this isn't my own fault for assuming, but I do wish her communication would have been a little clearer, because to me, it almost read like, we will meet on the Monday when she comes back at 5:15. But there was like no link to join or anything like that. So I thought, okay, she'll send it later. However, what I think she actually meant was when she came back, that Monday would be the day she would look for us a time, and she was just confirming like 5:15 was a time that would work for me as she looked at her schedule. But it just wasn't clear, and I really like very clear communication. So I ended up hearing from her a day after I expected, and she had basically said she had no openings after like 5. And I was just like, okay, wait, but you just told me 5:15, like you were confirming that time was good for me. So I don't know, that was a little like kind of weird. Like I'm gonna have to move my work schedule around some, which is doable. But it would have been better for me to just meet at the end of the day, because who wants to go to therapy in the middle of the day and possibly get into something pretty deep and emotional, because they'll dig back all the way to your childhood, and who knows what you'll get into. Then have to go back to work and be like in a meeting and present something, or just go back and have to do your work after you kind of went through something emotional. Like, I'd much rather that be at the end of my work day, so I can just kind of regroup in peace if need be. So yeah, but at that point I was like, well, she might not work with my schedule. So I went on Psychology Today. At least I think that's what it's called. Maybe I should look that up. But I went on this website where you can basically type in some information about yourself, like your location and what specific things you want to work on. And so I just kind of browsed through some different therapists and their profiles, and kind of read about who they are. Some of them have videos to explain a little bit about themselves and what they do. So I went through a few and found some I liked, because I'm like, you know what? It's not going to hurt to talk to a few people and kind of get a good feeling, right? To see who's like a good fit for me, especially since I hadn't always had the best experience in the past. So I found another girl and reached out to her, and she responded so quickly, which I loved, and we were able to set up a time. I was really excited. I responded to someone else but didn't hear back. And I was still considering my friend's therapist. We just hadn't yet really, we were like playing phone tag for a minute. Like, well, she was calling me and I was emailing her, but we kept missing each other and just could never work that out. The one that I was really excited about was supposed to call me like during my lunch break the next day, and she never called, and I was like, what is going on? Like, and then I still hadn't heard from the other person that I was interested in. So I was trying to talk to 3 people, wasn't getting appointments for any of them. And finally, I ended up reaching out to the person who never called or contacted me. And they were very apologetic. They had put me on the calendar, but not like set a reminder. And it was like at a time they don't typically have something. And we had talked about it the day before, like in the beginning of the day. So I'm also working on being more flexible with people. And when people like make mistakes, like not letting that be like a grudge I'll hold. So I decided, you know what, like she was really apologetic. She explained everything. And she was able to speak with me. It was either the same or the next day. I don't recall. But anyway, so I'm like, you know what? Yes, I'll give you another chance. And during that debacle, the other person that I wanted to speak to also contacted me to set up a time. So in the end of it all, I found the one I think will work, and my first appointment will be on Monday. There's somebody who is local, but we will probably mostly meet virtually just because we're going to meet at 5. They also had times that work for my schedule, which awesome, that's important too. So we're going to meet like right as my work day's over. So if I ever wanted to or needed to go in person for some reason, they're about a 25-minute drive from me. I could just like take half a lunch break that day and put it at the end of my day and end my day at 4:30 to drive over there. But I don't really think that will probably happen. But for now, we're going to be meeting every other week on a Monday, which I think is actually a really great day for therapy. We'll see if that's true. But the reason I say that's because if I'm thinking back to things that have happened in my life recently where I feel like I might have could use support from someone like a therapist, it seems like that happened on the weekend. So like, just be kind of great to kind of clear out what happened on the weekend with a therapist on Mondays and set myself up for a successful week. She did want to meet every week in the beginning. She said she works with teens, young adults, and adults, and that normally for sure when she's like starting to get to know someone, or especially working with someone younger like a teen, in the first month or so she'd like to meet every week to get to know them, which I totally understand. But the only weekly appointment she had was at 4, so it was too early. So we went with every other week, which she did say, you know, like I'm an adult and clearly I'm very open about things, and I'll be willing to chat. So she's not like as worried about getting to know me, because clearly I'm pretty much an open book. I started off my meeting with her like, I know I gave you an example of one thing, but I actually have a list if that gives you any insight to who I am. And you know, that was funny. So from what I can tell, we're a similar age, which was important to me because I feel like someone older or younger won't necessarily understand exactly where I'm coming from versus someone my age, and I don't think that matters. I think there are plenty of great therapists out there at various ages. My brother is a therapist. I don't know if he's a great one or not because he's never worked with me, but my point is I thought it would be easier to communicate and relate to someone in my like age bracket. So I will give you some updates on how I feel like that's going when we check in on our walks together. But yeah, again, leave me a comment. Let me know, like, how is it finding a therapist for yourself or someone you know, if you've had that experience? And if you haven't, would you want to go to therapy? Like, obviously, I'm not asking you to share with me your whole personal life story, but you're welcome to share as much as you want. I'd love to get to know who's out there walking with me, just as I am trying to let you get to know me. But thanks so much for walking with me today, and I'll see you next time.